Hello, beautiful people, and welcome back to the Master Your Mindset podcast. Today, we are recording the sixth and last podcast episode for our Spiritual Awakening series with myself and with Claire. And Claire is back today. Hello, Claire. Welcome back.
Talking about twin flames.
Yes, exactly. Today we are talking about twin flames, and I'm so excited to get into this topic. I have some questions here from, people on Instagram. I have some questions here from texts that have come through. So I'm so excited to get have Claire here to answer all these questions for myself and for everyone at the same time.
No pressure.
So no, it's going to be great. It's going to be
That'll
great.
be fun.
So we can get straight into it if you're happy with that. And I ask just what is a twin flame?
Wow. Well, we'll start right off with the big guns and ask, what is a twin flame? And as I said to you earlier, Jess, I can really only speak from my own personal experience, knowing that I'm in a twin flame union and the numerous number of clients that I've worked with to help them on their twin flame journey. There are some really big common themes and patterns that play out in somebody's twin flame relationship versus a soulmate or a karmic relationship. So the twin flame relationship is part of a spiritual awakening, and it brings forward the truth about you and your soul's journey. It is by far one of the most powerful, expansive spiritual encounters when you come across and when you engage with your twin flame. So does that make sense, Jess?
Mm, I'm wondering, what makes it so expansive? So, how does someone become a twin flame?
The belief is that when the creator source of all it is was created, when they wanted to put out streams of consciousness to better understand what it's like to be in different dimensions here in the 3D, the 4D, the 5D, these streams of consciousness. So you can imagine just like, let's just say, like a ball of energy, which is you and your twin flame, or you as that original energy. It split into two because that blast of energy was so incredibly powerful that this separation of you and your twin flame went out into the multiverse. And so the design within twin flames is that there's a level of separation and immediate exposure to the polarity, the 3D, the the loss of a part of you, that it sets off that quest, like that hero's journey to go and find your other half. And it's not that you're not complete and you need your other half, but it's just that way that we use that language is that there's this innate sense in you to go and find this other piece of the puzzle that matches your frequency perfectly. So basically the twin flame or the twin flame journey is again that self-discovery and finding that other version of you who will mirror, being that twin will mirror your soul's frequency. So you can see from just even my language that this is pretty advanced topic when it comes to spirituality, right?
Yeah, but it's so interesting because it sounds I've heard some brief stories, maybe not the full story, but like stories of people who are looking for their twin flame and actually the journey that it involves and that like the challenges and the beauty in it as well. But I do wonder like what makes a flame relationship different from other relationships, because I know it sounds a lot more expansive or a lot more exciting, and it seems like, I don't know, the word I have is explosive. I'm not sure why, but um
Yeah.
what makes it different to that other relationship, those sorts of relationships?
Yeah, good question. So there's the difference between the twin flame, and the twin flame, as I've already articulated, is that magnetic pull, spiritually advanced kind of relationship. And that twin flame relationship tends to and we'll go into more detail, but you tend to come, your twin flame is often somebody that traditionally you would never actually be drawn to. So maybe they're a lot older, maybe they're married, maybe they're the the opposite of your religion. Like there's going to be all of these social reasons why you shouldn't be together. Whereas a soulmate tends to be just like what you would envision, your best friend at high school, or your soulmate is that person who is going to come in, and there's still going to be a beautiful level of love and connection. But what happens is, as a soulmate dynamic, when you as a soul, when you put your hand up to be in a soulmate relationship, and we've all got availability to have hundreds of soulmates, but the soulmate is going to push your buttons like a remote control. They'll push your buttons to help you grow and evolve. Whereas a twin flame relationship, yes, they'll push your buttons to grow and evolve, but there's a lot more external buttons on why you two shouldn't be together, or the external buttons that makes that relationship all the more magnetic and curious. So the soulmate one
Mm,
there can be can be a level of your soul learning about power, being grounded, being here on earth. And the twin flame relationship is all about how to spiritually expand and evolve. So yeah,
mm.
there's a lots of sort of different polarities playing out there. But again, my question is like, does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. And then, so what I heard from that is, and this might be silly, but I guess I'm very much still learning as well. Your twin flame doesn't necessarily have to be someone who is the same age as you. It's kind of like anyone, and for some reason you're not it's you're not supposed to be together, but there's that connection that you just want to be, like there's that kind of connection. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. For all of the social standards, it's like
Yeah.
this shouldn't work. So, and then again, because the twin flame journey is about learning about separation, learning about the difference between your intuition and your ego, the twin flame is about learning how to spiritually evolve. That's a really big pattern. Um, that means that you have to let go of the attachments and the conditioning and the narratives that were previously put in place throughout childhood. So let's go back a little bit. And I know that we talked about this in past lives, but if we go back to what I call the contract table. So when I'm working with clients, I often take them back to the space between lives. And you call forward, you bring forward the big book of your soul's journey, your Akashic records. And I always ask the team to turn to the page just before this lifetime. And that's where we get to see all of the different soul contracts and what you signed up for. And it's a lot of fun. Um, but as a
Mm-hmm.
growing, evolving soul, somebody may put their hand up, and I know I sure did, to say, I want to come in and learn about empowerment. And all of these hands go up in the air, all of these other souls who say, great, I'm going to come in and teach you empowerment through disempowerment. Now, a lot of those souls are potentially either going to be relatives or soulmates, but they're souls who volunteered to teach me how to walk through the 3D reality to come back to my empowerment. So I've put my hands up, I've come into this world with a chaotic, loving family, a lot of chaos, and so through that chaos, the disharmony, it means that I've taken on a lot of layers of how I should be, the narratives of what religion I should be, the narratives of, all of these different conditioning and stories and limiting beliefs. And so my twin flame also would have done similar, not the same, but similar sort of soul contract. And so when we were at that contract table, and we made the decision, you know what, this lifetime, if everything can meet up, we will come into union. And so it's with that twin flame that you get to, again, that theme is going to keep coming up, is that spiritually evolve and work through the old conditioning and the old narratives, because they are all 3D human perspectives versus being up in the spirit world of love and light. So is this putting the
Mm-hmm.
pieces of the puzzle together?
It is, it really is. And I have my own question now that I'm thinking about right now. Knowing what I know about past lives, I wonder, and knowing what we all know about past lives because we've all listened to that episode.
It's so cute.
um,
Yeah.
I wonder, is your twin flame through all of your lives. Is that the right way to put it?
Yeah, it's perfect. So the interesting thing is that while your twin flame has been there for eternity, ever since your consciousness was created, your twin flame may not always come, may not, I'll use the proper terminology, they may not incarnate at the same time and space for you two to actually meet. So let's just say that we're talking about, I don't have a sister, but let's say I've got my sister and her twin flame is over in China right now. And while the twin flames are here in the 3D, they are not lined up to meet in this lifetime. So, yes, they could both be here, but they may not actually meet. And so, the people who tend to be curious about twin flames know this within their heart space that there's this yearning, their soul's craving to better understand it. Where is my twin flame or my other half? And so that will give you a good indication that at this time, space and reality, that's available to you. So so the answer to your question there, Jess, is yes and no. They may be here, they may be not.
Yeah, but they you
Of the
kind of have
past
one,
lives.
but they can't you kind of always will have one twin flame whether you meet in that lifetime or not.
Yeah, your twin flame is always going to be
Interesting.
the now not the mirror version of you, but the mirror version of your signature frequency. Your energy is going to be a mirror of that, and there is only one of those out in out in the world.
Okay.
And so
And
thinking
yeah, sorry.
about the yin, yeah, thinking about like the yin yang symbol, how there's that divine feminine and the divine masculine. We're not talking about gender, but we are talking because we all of us have some level of masculinity and femininity. So your other half is like your yin to your yang, and that your soul is craving to go and find that.
Oh my gosh, it's so funny. And I won't get into it, but I'm just thinking about the synchronicities of some things you're saying, and just a lot of that's been coming up within my life behind the scenes, but that's not about it. I'm just laughing at the synchronicities. Um, okay, okay, okay.
So yeah, in my
I'm
twin
just
flame union, David and I have had past, we can, being hypnotherapists, we can track each other and know that we've had past lives, each and every single past life we've had together. However, there's been past lives where he's just been, let's say, he's just been the shop assistant. Like we never actually met, but we've been crossing paths. So he's
yeah.
we've met, don't not ready for you, and so that lifetime wasn't the one for the union.
Okay. And so, okay, is everyone a twin flame? And has
Yeah,
everyone got their twin flame, obviously? Okay. I thought it was like
you're a twin
certain
flame, Jess.
people. Oh
We don't
my gosh.
we don't know if Nate is your twin flame, but we know that everybody has their twin flame. So whether or not you're on a soulmate journey or you're on a twin flame journey, then or a karmic journey, yeah,
Oh
that
my gosh.
she just got it,
So,
everyone. She
everything's
just
just
got it.
coming. Okay, so backing back a little bit, you talked about gender a little bit, and I
Yeah.
know that a question came through, so I want to ask this question as well. Are twin flames always okay? Yeah, are twin flames always male and female? Is it? It's not like that romantic relationship style relationship, right? It's obviously a spiritual connection coming together. It's like your souls, like, yeah, right?
Let I hear you, and I can hear you talk about like the masculine and the feminine. But let me backtrack a little bit. And
Yeah.
without being disrespectful, there's a lot of people who romanticize the twin flame, like, "Oh, that's the be all and end all, and I want it." And knowing what I know about the twin flame journey, you can be careful what you wish for because it is going to push your buttons. It is going to be one of the most challenging experiences, confronting experiences. Like you put your seatbelt on before you go on that ride. So there can be a level of that of people romanticizing the twin flame journey and thinking like it's just all glorious and wonderful. And then there's the other toxic side of twin flames where somebody can be in a codependent relationship, trauma bonding, and they just like this is all like this is the twin flame it has to be. And it's like, oh gosh, that
Mm.
level of obsession tells you that you may not necessarily be in a twin flame, but God help the coach who tells that person that, right?
Okay, okay. Oh my gosh, I'm loving this. This is all so, so interesting. So, like, what we may have already spoken about this, but what is the purpose of a twin flame? Like, what's the ultimate purpose for it?
So twin flame, everybody comes to Earth with their own individual purpose. They all come in, everybody comes in with their own spiritual purpose and their own sort of like purpose within a family, their own purpose within their career. Everybody has a lot of purposes available to them. And the twin flame purpose is each pair of twin flames will have their own soul's mission, their own soul's purpose. And so coming together means that they can go out into the world and really live that life of service and purpose, and bringing that to Mother Earth, bringing that to this 3D experience. So both David and I are both trainers, we're both teachers in the spiritual industry. And so that's where part of our purpose, our collective purpose together is to willingly share that and help people spiritually awaken, but thinking about other twin flame journeys, that may not be their purpose. But ultimately, it's a shared purpose of service to humanity, uh, in that little culture or in that little collective. So that's basically what the twin flame is to help people expand their energy. Come on, come with us, come play in the higher realms, basically.
Okay, so if I'm getting this right, you and David are twin flames
Yeah,
relationship.
yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Because I know a little
Yeah,
bit more about, you've spoken in past episodes about past lives and things like that with, with David.
yeah. And it's, you know, in the early days when my ego was like, this can't be true, like this doesn't make sense. Oh God, people, what are people going to think of me? But when you do a little bit of research and meditation and exploring what it means to be in that twin flame union, it's like tick, 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 tick. Like, okay, David, we got some work to do. So
Yeah.
yeah, it
Yeah.
is a bit special. But as I was saying, like you need to put your seatbelt on and ready for that ride because gosh, it's a journey.
And it's really awesome that in this lifetime for you both, it aligns. It aligns that you could get married. He's not like you say earlier, the shopkeeper
Yeah.
on the side or whatever. That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. So it's, and you were speaking earlier about the masculine and the feminine. So we are at a point in time where the spirit world is asking us to come back into the sacred neutral. So we have the light workers have an agenda, the dark workers have an agenda, and so we're all being asked to come back to that sacred neutral, to have non-attachment, to be observers. And so that's where we're all at that journey at the moment within the spectrum of like, am I at one end of the spectrum or am I at one end of this spectrum? Am I male? Am I female? What's going on there? Am I somewhere in the middle? And the spiritual evolution is asking us to just recognize that each and every single one of us both have both energies flowing through us. We all have a divine feminine, we all have a divine masculine, but it just depends on the percentage. And so within that spiritual evolution, we're being asked just to see each other in their pure light, in their pure potential, rather than labeling them and putting them into a box. So that's where the twin
Mhm.
flames can be two beautiful women coming together, it can be two men coming together, it can be male and female coming together. I'm pretty sure in different areas of our life I'm a lot more masculine in the way that I approach life, and then sometimes when I let David take the lead,
Mm.
he's more masculine in other areas. So that's where gender doesn't play into the twin flame arena.
Mm. Mm. Awesome. Yeah. And then, okay, so this might be off. I'm not sure. But when you speak about everything that we've just gone through as well, have you ever
Yeah.
seen the movie Hancock?
No, I have not, but it sounds like I need to.
Well, no. Okay, so this is why I wanted to ask you if for any sort of relevant topic or something that people may have seen, the audience may have seen, or the listeners, I guess. There is a movie, Hancock. It's actually Will Smith and I think her
Oh,
name's
yeah.
Charisse, someone. They have this movie. It's not based on this, but there's kind of this factor behind the scenes of like there's this. It is a woman and a female and a man, and I can't remember. It's been so long since I've watched the movie exactly what the aim or the goal of the movie was for, but in it there's like this. They're like they okay, I think they have superpowers. I'm not sure. I know one of them can fly or something. But anyway, they when they come closer and closer and closer together, it's like it's meant to be, but it not like in a relationship as in like a romantic relationship together, but like also like the challenges they need to be away from each other. They're like running away from each other at the same time
Yeah.
because they know that like chaos sort of happens.
Yeah.
So this is what I'm relating it to a little bit. Does that sound similar, or am I like,
Yeah, it
no?
sounds like you're talking about some of the stages within the twin flame dynamic. So yeah, when you're saying like
Yeah.
when they come together, it's almost so potent that there's a level of disharmony, so they have to go away to come back to balance, breathe, and then maybe come back with that more settled energy. Is that how that movie plays
Yeah.
out a little bit? That's
Yeah,
it.
I
Yeah,
can
that's
remember.
the twin
Yeah.
flame separation.
Okay, so every time I hear twin flame here, twin flame there, twin flame here, I think about this movie and I've always actually meant to ask you, which I'm so happy I'm asking you here on the podcast now so that others can relate as well if they've seen the movie, but so that I can have some sort of idea because I'm pretty sure that's always what my vision had been, like you say, the stages of it, some of the
Yeah.
stages. And I've always sort of put it back to that. So that's really cool to have that sort of reference there as well. Um, okay, so if I was to be, or no, okay, no, not if I was to be searching, but like, how do I find my twin flame? How do people find their twin flames?
Journey within the twin flames. Let's bring it back to my original description of it. That it's about the truth in discovering who you are. It's the truth about discovering your own soul's journey. And so when somebody starts to spiritually awaken, they start to awaken from the 3D, the materialism, like maybe they've been off to school, got the good 9 to 5 job, got the money, and yet it's still not fulfilling. And then they have this spiritual awakening of like, there has to be more to life. This is when somebody starts to actually work through what I described, those onion layers, the conditioning and the narratives that we were brought up, and they start to question their identity. And through that spiritual awakening is when you become more available to invite your twin flame into your world if you want it. A lot of the time, people will connect with their spirit guide, connect with their twin flame in the astral world, so in the dream state. You met in the 5D, some might call it, of actually dreaming about your twin flame, knowing that in the 5D you together, you're on a mission together. And so you may already be encountering your twin flame, but they haven't almost like materialized and come and met you face to face in this reality. So the question that you asked, Jess, is like, well, how do I pursue it? How do I go after it? It's like, yeah, you may actually be going after it in a different dimension. Then
Mm.
what happens is as you start to spiritually evolve, the that person can come in closer and closer till that opportunity, like the energy becomes almost magnetic. And then when you do meet, 9 times out of 10, you've been crossing paths with each other so many times. Like, why didn't we meet then? Like, what? Like, how did we not encounter each other up to then? And it's with that moment where Yeah, so I'm not sure if I've answered that question, like how to pursue it. It's something like planting a seed, and it naturally happens if you look after it with, warmth and water and everything else that goes into growing a plant. So it's definitely something that you can't force. But if you're curious
Mm.
about the twin flame relationship, then I would say that your intuition is pulling you towards something that's available. So, and yet it's unseen, right? So it's a bit tricky to explain.
And I guess the perfect situation would be if you've been watering your seed and your twin flame has also been watering their seed so that it kind of works perfectly in
I
lines,
love
right?
that. Yeah. Yeah, because it's so if we go back to the energy centers of the body, when you think about, some people call them chakras. I've had my chakras removed, but that's a whole nother conversation for another day. But we focus on the energy centers, and you've got the thinking about the heart space, the throat, and the third eye, and the ones above us. But let's just stay in simple terms. These energy centers are about growing spiritually and evolving spiritually, whereas the lower chakras, energy centers, your solar plexus, sacral, your root chakra, energy center, is all about grounding and the power and your survival being here on earth. And so those energy centers are the lower ones, are where your soulmates come in, and they almost, it sounds awful, but they almost hook into you. So when you meet somebody and that relationship, that commitment, that blending of energy comes together as a soulmate, this is where you will encounter challenges and your buttons being pushed when it comes to power imbalance, and that sort of thing. And a soulmate relationship will become quite draining and quite heavy, and may actually find yourself becoming a little bit bored of that relationship. And so that's where, if you can actually move through the triggers and the evolution of that power being here in the 3D, within those three energy centers, and start to allow yourself to evolve to a higher consciousness, this is when you can start to manifest and bring in that twin flame, because that's where you that's where you've done lifetime after lifetime to grow and ascend. So a long answer there, but 100%, Jess, is like they also have to be ready, because if they're still in their power imbalance in the root center, sorry, I'm losing my voice. Um, this is not going to be a harmonic match. This is not going to work. So yeah,
Mm,
so I just
wow.
put you into a
Actually,
trance then going off.
no, no, no. I'm just and also learning more about you. But like you say, that's for another day and another topic. Wow, this is so interesting. I and then okay, so I also heard you before as well talk about a checklist, and so I was wondering, how do I know we've already sort of talked about it in ways, but how do I know if I've already met my twin flame?
Hey, so good question. So everybody jumps on YouTube to get the checklist, and it's some of the experiences for other people were not my experience, but there's really strong common ones. Just checking in with the team because they just wanted to interrupt. The team are asking us to actually talk about, sorry, Jess, we got a third party
It's
playing
okay.
here, but they wanted to talk about the journey into the twin flame relationship. So we'd often call it like
Yeah.
some people call it 7 or 9 different stages of the twin flame. So typically, is that okay?
Yeah, 100%.
So typically that's stage one, as I've already articulated, with like you've gone from the root center to your sacral, solar plexus, your sacral, you're moving up, you're becoming more aware of your attachments to the material world. And as your consciousness moves up, there there's almost this, I call it that soul craving, but that yearning for something more. Like you start to yearn and crave, and maybe even start to connect in with your twin flame in the astral. The next thing that will happen is you actually will encounter them, you'll bump into them, and it will be that moment in time where all of the fairy tale stuff comes to the surface, like, wow, like I just want to be near you, I just want to talk to you. to talk to you for hours. And of course, our lives separate us to have to go back to wherever we need to. Like it's incredibly intense. Then the next stage of that relationship is like that honeymoon phase. There's that harmony that comes together, like just the synchronicities start to show up. You can telepathically link into each other to what they're thinking. Psychically, you sort of know what's going on for them. I know that for me and David, we could go to two different ends of the shopping center and still be able to energetically track each other and talk to each other and know where we are. So that connection is so incredibly strong. But because it is so strong, and because there's every reason why, why you shouldn't be together, because, someone's so much older or your religions clash or whatever the reason is, that's when the energy can become so intense that there's typically a runner, somebody who's like overwhelmed by how many triggers there are, how much they have to let go of, their identity that has to be collapsed. And so that's when there tends to be the runner. 9 times out of 10, it tends to be the one with the more masculine energy that will run, because it's like, wow, I'm going to have to turn my life upside down to actually make this work. And so so that's where there is that separation. Now, that was the most absolutely painful experience I've ever encountered, but it was also the time when I had to go in and learn about the truth about who I am, any sort of attachments that I have, any sort of, yeah, attachments is the best way to describe it. I had to come back to my sense of who I was. Um, and then once I could do that inner work, meant that energetically he could come in, instead of it being a want, it was, oh sorry, other way around, instead of it being a need, I need you, white knuckles clenched, it was like, I invite you into my space, and if you want me, great, and if you don't want me, I'll be okay with that too. I'll just call in a soulmate. So I haven't let you get a word in, but is this making sense, Jess?
I'm so okay with this. I am just, my mind is running with all these different ideas. I'm trying to think about it at this time. I'm like, because I've always, with what I knew, and actually in the beginning, when you're saying, I'm not sure if Nate is your soulmate or your twin flame, or, that sort of relationship, I'm just thinking, I was like, straight away, I was like, oh, I think soulmate. Like, that's what I think. But now I'm like listening to some of these things and I'm like, could be twin flame. I'm not sure. So I wonder, like, is there any I don't know if everything is so completely easy, but like, is there any sort of easy stories that you know of twin flames sort of coming together? And I'm just asking this because, not that this is about me and trying to figure my journey out, but
That's what, no.
also I'm trying to think of like when me and Nate were still first, together, or I was trying to see whatever was going on between us. We knew each other for 2 years before. We lived on the boat before for so long and everything. So, but like, because I had done so much work on myself in the months leading up to this, like so much work, and he also has done so much work on himself and all, like a lot, and still growing as well, both of us obviously still growing. I was just starting to think, because like when we first sort of were together, it just, in small ways, it didn't make sense for us to be together, and it was
Mm-hmm.
very quite scary, and we were like both like, oh, but that doesn't make sense, that doesn't make sense. But at the same time, I'm like, but it made
Yeah.
sense in our own
Yeah.
way. I don't know if that's like twin flame sort of stuff, but I'm just trying to figure out it. So has there been any like easy stories that you know of, or anything like that, where twin flames sort of can be together and it did work fine? Yeah.
Well, yeah, because the interesting thing is with you and Nate is that you two were friends for a long time, but you didn't come together as lovers until you'd done that work. So while sex may not have been involved right at the beginning, there was technically was there was that level of separation, and they're like, well, I've got to do this inner work, and these other soulmates were helping me be prepared for this. So yes, you've there's a big chance that you've actually skipped that anguish, but you've also done the anguish by doing the inner work from the soulmates pushing your buttons. So yeah, there's a high
Mm.
potential that that we're and that's the interesting thing with Nate is that you two have a really in my you will only know, um but you two have a high percentage chance of being in that twin flame union, and you'll either your full body will feel it, or you'll like, oh no, not quite, Claire. So do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm just very curious. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I would be
Okay.
leaning more into the twin flame dynamic with you and Nate. Otherwise, we probably
Yeah.
wouldn't be having this conversation. And I know of an astrologer who can look at your chart and his chart and overlay it and go, there's a high percentage chance. But if you've got any sort of medium or clairvoyant like telling you definitively, then they're not doing their job right. Like this needs to come from the truth of who you are and your inner knowing more than somebody projecting that onto you.
Do you know what's so funny? And I think we'll get into this sort of soon, but what I did know of twin flames before this, I guess not know, but have heard about is sort of like the stigmas around them, and like, oh, maybe from stories that people are going through their stages of being in twin flames. I'm like, okay, that sounds too much. It sounds overwhelming. It sounds scary. I don't want a twin flame. So I'm like, I'm so happy with soulmate. Like, in fact, that's perfect for me. But now I'm just having this conversation. I'm thinking so deep into it, and I'm like, whoa, like it doesn't actually, like if you do your own work and everything that we're talking about, twin flame also sounds amazing.
Yeah, and it is because once you get past that really challenging separation phase and you work through a big chunk of your challenges, the triggers, the conditioning, the onion layers, once you've worked through that, then coming together is like being seen, being heard, being valued, being understood by, again, that mirror version of you. And the relationship is so fluid that when, you say, oh, babe, I think you're being triggered there, and they're like, yeah, you're probably right. And so there's not these massive big fights and yelling and stuff and power imbalances. It's just like, you know what? Like you might want to check in on that. Like, yeah, let me go, for David, let me go sit in my spa and work through some of that trigger. And so
Mm,
and so there is that mutual love and respect, and not taking yourselves too seriously in within the
yeah.
relationship. On the other side of that, though, is like the outside world will see it. Like there'll people be like, well, you two should just be married. Like you see it, and yet there'll be this like, but what about the judgments? Like Dave and I have a 20 something year age gap between us. Like, oh, that looks a bit funny. And he introduces me, Toastmasters or whatever. Oh, you brought your daughter, and you're like, no, you brought your wife. So,
Oh my gosh.
um,
Yeah.
but
Okay.
yeah, there's a bit of quirkiness there. But if you've worked through the judgments, your fear of being judged, and recognizing that when people are in that fear of being judged, they've really gotten stuck in the polarity of what's right and what's wrong versus coming back to that sacred neutral of going, I'm happy for you. If you're happy, I'm happy. Bye. Like, whatever.
Yeah, okay. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm really, really thinking about this now. I don't know if this is something that just, yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, or if this doesn't sound like I'm on the right track, but before Nate and I were together, even he I was leaving the boat, and then but he said to me, and we weren't even together at this point, but just before we were together, he said to me, it doesn't, like, I was like, oh, it's gonna be sad because, like, when you're living on a boat, you get connect and everything with people so deeply because you're literally there with them 24/7. And then he's like, but don't worry, I strongly believe, and I truly believe that this isn't the last time we'll see each other. Not just in a sense of like, oh, we'll see each other on the seas or whatever. He's like I know that we will. It doesn't matter. And he said this to me after. I'm like, you were just gonna let me leave and not like pursue anything? And and he goes, yeah, but like it was the right timing, and like I strongly knew that we were going to meet again in some sort of way, and it was going to be either the right way or whatever. But he's not like I think he is, but he's not as like spiritual in the sense. He definitely is, but also like, so he doesn't actually know about twin flames, but I feel like he also knows that this, that he knew we were going to meet, didn't know where, why, what, how, didn't matter. He knew that it was going to be a thing again if whatever happened didn't happen then. But yeah, I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah. So his intuition was spot on.
Yeah, yeah. And then, okay, so I spoke a little bit before about like hearing a lot of stigmas and things. I just wonder, what are the biggest stigmas around the twin flame connection that you've heard of or
Oh, like
seen? Or
the you mean like with the people sort of making judgments on it, like the
yeah, I don't know if myths is the right word, but just like the yeah, judgments. Yeah, exactly.
yeah, well, I guess the anybody who sort of put their hand up and opened the door, whatever it is within the matrix, whatever pill you've taken, and then you're right into crystals and you can see dead people and you're into energy. It's the same kind of category. It's the same kind of judgments of like, okay, what's going on there? But the interesting thing with the way that people's consciousness is raised is that when they're in those bottom layers of consciousness within the survival realms, and you're part of that tribal team again for survival, you are going to reject anything that doesn't fit into the tribe, basically. And so the people, as the consciousness starts to raise from that tribal energy, consciousness moved up into community of like churches and still staying together in that tribe. But then along the way up that scale, eventually somebody says, wait a minute, there has to be something more to life. And they go off on their merry way. They're a lot more sensitive to energy, telepathic, psychic, all of that beautiful awareness to what's going on. And so it's typically the people who are at the lower ends of that consciousness that have the harshest judgments, but they're also the ones who are spiritually asleep, so that we know how important it is to raise our frequency. So I probably haven't answered your question when you're like, well, what is the stigmatism and things like that when you hear people talk about vision boards and crystals and stuff, it's going to be much the same of like, what a load of nonsense. Um, but once you're on that journey, there's some unmistakable, like undeniable, I should say, signs that you can't ignore. When you're in
Mm.
that energy, you really do know it. Again, there's that spiritual awakening that when you two actually do come together, it's like it's like he has energy codes and frequencies that activate energy centers in her, and she has the same that activate in him. And then a lot more synchronization starts to show up. And it's about helping you recognize that you're actually coming out of that 3D matrix, and that you thoughts do create your reality, and that you can expand your energy. Yeah, I didn't let you get a word in there, Jess, but I've gone off on a different
No,
tangent
no, no,
again.
no. No, no, no. I love the tangents. The listeners love the tangents. And yeah, it makes sense. Especially when you're saying like usually it's coming from, and I guess it's all a matter of like what you let other people judge you on, or what you let in. When you say it's like people that also are kind of like spiritually asleep, and that's not where their frequency is at, and all of that. So for the people on the other side of that, it's like, yeah, what you let get to you, I guess, or what you let affect you in a different way. Yeah, so that makes sense to me completely. Yeah. I
I could
love this
see your mind
conversation.
wander go, how do we take this?
I love this conversation. And then so a question that I had from from a listener, she has asked, what are some of the pitfalls you can fall into within a twin flame connection?
Yeah, at the beginning of the twin flame, there's that ability to become obsessive about the twin flame, and you kind of lose lose who you are within that obsession. And that is definitely one of the pitfalls. And then there's also this, because the energy is so strong, there's also this need to check in with your friends, like, well, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? Like, do you think, can you see the twin flame thing? You know, isn't he wonderful? And there's this obsession that can come in, which actually puts in a level of resistance and disharmony in the relationship when that neediness starts to generate. And so that is
Mm,
definitely one of the pitfalls, is that you can lose who you are in a twin flame relationship at the beginning. Um,
mm,
the the other part of the pitfalls in it's a really, really good question, whoever came up with it, because the other problem is that you need to have a really strong backbone or a really good coach or healer beside you as you walk through those early stages of the twin flame relationship, because your twin flame is there to activate you to let go of the old paradigm. And so you're going to have to work through all of the judgments and the old stories and working through your identity. And it can feel like agony without having somebody outside of you who has that non-judgment, who can actually walk you on that path. So yeah,
mm,
that would
mm.
be definitely some of the pitfalls. Just even reflecting on clients that I've worked with, that they're they're so entwined in their twin flame relationship that he may not be in the picture. Most of my clients are women, so he may not be in the picture. He's decided, I have to go complete some karmic relationships, I can't be with you. And she stays single, which drives me batty, but respectfully, that's her choice. You know, that's absolutely up to her. But I do believe that some of the pitfalls with twin flames is like, well, I've met him, he's not available, so I just need to be patient and wait for him to wake up and come to me. And I do believe we're here for that human experience. And it's like, no, become who you want to be, like with or without him. Go and become who you want to be. Go and call forward a connection, a soulmate connections to help you live life to the fullest. Like, do not be sitting on the couch waiting for him. Go and become the person you want to be in that relationship. Go do the work, go work through the triggers, so that when you do actually come together this lifetime or the next life, you're ready for it. And so I think that would be about the third or fourth pitfall there, Jess, is waiting. Wait, unless your heart
I
says to.
think, yeah, no, yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I think that this is such a great conversation to be having for just all the listeners. Like, work on yourself. Like, maybe that is one of the things, like, because you're waiting, that's something that you could and if it's not what your intuition's telling you to do and all of that, that might be something that you can work on yourself. That might be what we're talking about when you're watering your seeds. You're
Yeah,
doing some of the work to, make it the twin flame stages easier and all of that. So my hands are
yeah.
going like all over the place. It was also really nice because if Nate is my twin flame, which I'm feeling really good about. It feels really nice when you're saying like it is nice to have someone to guide you. And I feel like I had you guiding me there completely, like working through the judgments and working through the things and working on myself as well. So that was a really, really nice thing to think about as well when you were talking about that. And then when we're coming back to attachment and obsession. Um, why is it so easy to fall into attachment and obsession?
When it comes to being in that twin flame relationship, you are with your twin, and we all have that some level of narcissism in us, of that looking at ourselves in the mirror. Is my hair right? You know, you do want to present the best version of yourself to the world. And it's much the same with that twin flame, the attachment, the magnetism, the energy. It's just, it pulls you, and it pulls you to be that best version of yourself. So it is really yummy, but at the same time, you have to recognize the difference between attachment and that surrender, going with the flow kind of energy. One's, if if a twin flame is too much in that old paradigm and that disharmony, that magnetic craving and attachment will actually push the other person away. So it's an interesting dynamic. I don't know. Did that
Mm.
make sense?
No, yeah, no, yeah, it makes sense completely. Um, and I had all these thoughts in my head just now. I was just like, as you were talking, okay, well, but we've gone with that. That's okay. But yeah, then no, that makes sense. And I wonder, do with all of this, with this attachment and this obsession, do you know, this is a big question, what the best way to master the art of detachment would be?
Yeah, it's to actually go in and work on the triggers. So similar to other podcasts that we've worked on, if if I'm getting into this is years ago, but if I'm getting into the oh, why haven't I heard from him? Where is he? What's he doing? All of that, we're like, whoa, like what trigger just got held up there? Like what is going on? Is there a level of neediness? Is there like what is going on? Is there is your abandonment stuff coming up? Is your rejection stuff coming up? Like what's the worst thing about him not being here? Or like how's it a problem if you're by yourself? And working through that because a lot of the time some of my clients they will project so much meaning and importance into him that they lose interest or they lose a little bit of who they are because that relationship just needs to be harnessed and looked after so much, and it's like wait a minute. So I don't
Mm.
remember you, I'm going into your privacy, but I don't remember you ever going into that level of obsession.
But you know why? It's because I don't know if I've ever had that level of obsession. Sorry, get my words out there. But I feel like within myself, maybe I didn't show it, but within myself, I did. So that's why the work that I did just before getting together with Nate, I like went through a complete identity crisis. I don't know if that's the right words, but like I didn't know who I was without being with someone. And I felt the need to go and work on that. And I did. I really worked on that to the extent where I had this goal for myself. Or I said, because I'd always sort of been with someone. I didn't really know my identity without being with someone, like I've said. But
Yeah.
now that I was finally like by myself for the first time in so long since I was a teenager,
Mm.
um, I was like, okay, now I need to learn to love to spend time with myself. And
Yeah.
I've always been this type of person who growing up, I have all these cousins, I have this big family, I have these friends, I get along with everyone, like, and then to all of a sudden be kind of completely alone or feel completely alone for the first time, that was uncomfortable. And I knew then
Yeah.
and there, I'm like, this is just going to keep happening and happening and happening if I don't work on it now. So now is the time. So for this year, my thing to myself is I'm going to learn to love to spend time with myself. It got to the complete other point and I swung that pendulum swing and I was on the other side where I turned completely introvert. I loved so much spending time with myself. But yeah, like we're getting back into it, like working on yourself. And I really love this. I see so many reasons why this is the conversation that we're having today, but especially because I feel like, mastering that art of detachment is working on yourself. And a lot of this, and you say it is your spiritual journey,
Mm.
and working on yourself and doing the inner work. And I feel like that's everything that I love. And that's exactly who I am and what I like to coach through and mentor through, like working on yourself and being that guider. So I think this is awesome, and it makes total sense that that is how you detach. And for me, it makes so much sense now. I'm like, duh, you know.
Yeah. And it goes hand in hand, doesn't it, with manifesting. It's like know what you want. And like, yes, I'd love the love of my life to present, Abraham Hicks and say my equal co-creator. I want them to come into my world and getting really clear on what that would look like and how and the best version of you in that relationship. What do you bring? What do you want? All of that of, wanting to be a really good kisser, and I want him to share the same values, and I want to share that deep intimacy and conversation and all of that list. And then because that's not here right now, your intuition is saying like, yes, that's on the path. But because that's not here now, that is when you do go and work on with your coach, such as you, Jess, to better understand, well, why isn't it here now? What is the neediness? What is the fear if you don't get that? How are you justifying why you don't have, like, all of those stories? Because then once you can move through, again, the judgment, the fear, whatever else is going on, the limitations there, then he can actually, I'm saying he, but he can actually come in as that equal co-creator, because you've raised your standards and you're not coming from a place of that neediness and that fear. So I hear you, and it's a fun topic to say, like, yeah, I needed to learn to love spending time with myself. But at the same time, Jess, you also got clear on where your boundaries were, what your standards were, and the type of person that you would allow in. And on some level, let's just have a bit of fun with this. On some level, you finally took yourself up to Nate's level, where he's like, babe, I've been waiting for you to come up here. Like, it's great. You raised his no.
No, no, no. Well, but like when no, you're so right. Like from that point of like learning to love to spend time with myself, that was like a very starting point, and that just evolved into so much of learning, like you say, about boundaries. And honestly, I knew, I thought I knew what I wanted. You know what I mean? Like I had this idea, and okay, we're going to be talking about like what I'm thinking of at the time of a soulmate. What I want
Yep.
in a soulmate, without knowing anything about twin flames and all that. But I also learned like what I don't want, and I
Mm.
guess that comes into boundaries, and all that as well in a person, in a relationship, and yeah, you just learn so much about everything, which helps everything to align so much better and
Yeah.
manifest in, like we say, we're talking about manifesting as well, like manifest into my life. So yeah, very cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it's just a matter of, if you're manifesting in your twin flame, to start rehearsing what that would be like to be in their energy, but also what you bring to the relationship, and looking out for those synchronicities. Typically, there's that 111 and the white feathers that start to really activate somebody within their spiritual awakening, and then that's when the invitation for the twin flame can come in. There's a lot more twin flames in this time, space, and reality right now than there was 100 years ago, because we can all feel time speeding up. We all know that we've got to get this mission done. We've got to do what we've got to do, and so there's a lot more twin flame availability right now than ever before. So
Mm,
it's rare, but it's not rare in the spiritual community. Like, if you're awakening, it's a reason for that. So yeah.
mm. And then, okay, so I have a question from a listener, and I don't know what this means. So this is why I'm so excited to ask you. What is an oversoul?
We've got our 3D self in the human body, and then going above that is our higher self, which would be in the spirit world. So we've got our 3D bodies, then above that we've got the spirit world, where we've got our soul spirit guides and our past life connections. Um, and then above that we would have, there should be a few more layers, but we've got our higher self, which is that highest version of us that have insight and knowledge into our purpose and our blueprint. And then going above that, we've got our oversoul, which is the version of ourselves that pours consciousness into different aspects. So without showing you a picture, it's a little bit complicated, but the oversoul is above our higher self, and so it will have the truest, highest version. So anytime that I'm doing any kind of readings, tarot readings, coaching work, I'm going to go talk to somebody's higher self, because they don't have an agenda, and they have, versus going to a spirit guide and they do have an agenda. But going to somebody's higher self, they give you the truest version or potential of what's available for that person. Now, going to the oversoul is awesome, but this is where we're going into like 12th dimension, and the clarity will be there, but gosh, you're going to have to raise your frequency to better understand what's coming in from the oversoul. So it's a dynamic conversation, that one in itself. So when you're
Yes,
working
yes.
with clients, Jess, like, are you connecting into their highest versions of themselves?
Yeah, the higher self. But I
Yeah.
know that we've had conversations of this oversoul, but without knowing that oversoul was the word that it's used for. I remember I think we've even had a conversation somewhere within the spiritual awakening series of, where you have aspects of you here, you have the glass of water, in China, you have aspects of you, and I think it was Pleiades, we have
Yeah.
aspects of you like all over. So that, yeah, I get, yeah,
Yeah, so
cool.
you got your higher self would be like the glass of water, but the oversoul would be like the jug that's pouring the water into the different glasses. There's a bit of you here, within like that, think about like that soul family. So it's that higher level of consciousness that's creating that soul family, that's creating those different channels.
Oh my gosh, this is awesome. This is so cool. This is so cool. Um, and then so I know we've sort of gone away from the attachment and detachment and things, but like, is there a way, if it was getting too much or if someone just decided to, is there a way to disconnect from your twin's energy?
Yep, there would be. Um,
Oh, we're frozen.
I'm
Oh,
frozen.
hello.
That's great. Do you know that, as strange as it sounds, we often hear people talk about cutting cords, and, I'm a little bit naughty. I kind of roll my eyes, look at to cut the cords. There's a few more steps into cutting cords with somebody. So cutting cords in a session with me means that, if you're experiencing a soulmate relationship and it's toxic and it's like, let's cut the cords. First, I'm going to take you back to that soul contract table to better understand what you were supposed to learn from that relationship. In fact, what were you supposed to teach that person in that relationship? And once your soul gets that aha, there's that level of closure, there's the forgiveness of putting yourself through such an interesting soul contract. Once you've done that kind of work, you can call in Archangel Michael and call with his sword of truth and light, and to cut that cord. And then you want to bring in Archangel Raphael to heal where those cords were once attached. So we can definitely cut cords. I've got fabulous stories on that, where once you've cut the cord on somebody, you've now raised the standard to the point where you've now got the upper hand and the opportunity to have boundaries put in place to say, if you're going to come near me, these are now my boundaries, rather than you coming down to their level where they've been pulling on your energy. So once you cut cords with someone, 9 times out of 10, you're actually going to physically hear from them, because they're like, wait, where's my supply? Like, normally I could just tap into you and take what I want. And so that's where I actively, even with clients, I'm actively cutting cords, separating out energy. I'm clearing, transmuting, and deleting all of my expectations on my business, deleting and transmuting all of my expectations on my clients, on my family. And which sounds counterintuitive, right? Like, normally we'd want to build that connection and pull into it and hold on to it. But this lack of attachment, or the letting go of attachment, means I'm going to let you go and invite in the next level of potential. And and so, yes, long answer, sorry, but the long answer is yes, you can cut your cords with the twin flame, better understand what's going on there, and expect that you'll probably come together in another lifetime, if that's something that your free will wants. So overall, your free will override any twin flame rules, so to speak, air quotes there for anybody on the podcast, but your free will override it. Then you just need to know the tools and techniques to be able to successfully let that go. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So you've
Because
practiced at cutting. Yeah, you've practiced at
yes,
cutting cords, right?
I practice cutting cords, and the empath that I am, going back into the empath journey, that's helped a lot, and it's really, really good. Like to cut cords, cut the energy away, come back to yourself, clear yourself, all of that. So yeah,
Releasing
I
all
completely
psychic
get that.
hooks.
Yeah, I completely get that. Yeah, for sure. This has been such a cool conversation, and I just wonder, is there anything else that you feel like we should cover on this episode?
Just looking down, connecting to the team. Is there anything else here? Um, I can just hear them talking about. I could just hear them talking about the invitation to all of your listeners to still invite in a level of activation within their energy to expand. Do if you take my full body tingles here, I can feel my guides talking. Do not put attachment to needing the twin flame to energetically expand. Do not put attachment to twin flames to spiritually expand, because boy oh boy, you'll still get that same but different. Think about a different holiday, going to a holiday to a tropical island versus somewhere like the snow. Like, you're still going to be on holiday. It'll just be a different experience. It is what you make of it. So I can hear the team saying, like, if you're somebody who's on that spiritual journey, don't put attachment to needing to be in a twin flame to get to those highest highs, because the soulmate journey will get you to really different kind of highs. So
Mm.
that's the offering there from my team starting to talk through me. So yeah.
Mm, I really love that piece of advice, and I also love the analogy that you used with the different types of holidays. It makes so much sense hearing that, like, yeah, one time you want to go to the snow and you have such a good time, and then the next time you
Yeah.
go to a tropical holiday and you have such a good time, the one and the same, that you just like can get highs from all areas, soulmates and twin flames. So that's cool. I really love that.
Yeah.
Wow, Claire, thank you so, so much.
It's been wonderful sharing this with you. Full body tingles here, and I got to get some coaching on my sadness around endings, but that's all good. It's been so nice to
Hey, but I
share this
mean,
with
we
you.
have some closure on the Spiritual Awakening series, but this isn't an ending for anything. You're going to be on the podcast again for sure in times, at the right times and all of that. So we're all looking forward to that as well. But has been such a cool series. I've loved every conversation. I've loved all the questions. I've loved all the interactions from the listeners. I've loved everything about it. So thank you so, so, so much for being the expert and,
Yeah.
giving us all of this knowledge and expanding ourselves into the spiritual awakening.
Oh, Jess, it's been my absolute honor to share this time and space with you, and to share and to let everybody just explore what may work for them, what may not work for them, and just allow their intuition to fly to be their best selves, right? So thank
Mhm.
you, Jess, for bringing that time and bringing us together, and all of the work that you do behind the scenes to get this out there. So yeah, it means so much to me. So thank you.
And as always, Claire's plugs will be in the show notes. They will be all over my Instagram. You'll see us together as well, because I'm starting the NLP course with you in Feb. So that'll be all over my Instagram too. I know it. So that is not the end of Claire here.
After an LP podcast, that'll be fun.
Yeah, for sure. For
Yeah.
sure. That's a good idea. All right.
Cool.
Well, we bring this to an end. I hope you have a really good day. And
Thank
everyone,
you,
I hope you've
Jess.
really enjoyed this episode. I can't wait for you all for all the feedback from this.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody. Bye, Jess.